Okay, we are live. Hi everyone. Welcome back to week number 7. It's I was just checking it, and it's crazy how fast time went by. You know, it's already week 7. It's crazy. How is everyone doing?
Yeah, just fine. Yeah.
Awesome. Oh, I think Sarah is okay. Yeah. All right. So Andrew will join a bit late, but he will join definitely. And I don't know. We can still wait for Sarah to join so that you can demo your app. Hi, Andrew.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
4 mentors and Deborah.
I'm representing the whole team.
That's great.
Representing the whole Europe and Africa.
Yeah. No pressure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Sarah was here. I think she also probably has the network issue, maybe.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, probably she will join also if it gets resolved.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if Egypt is having internet issues. Whole country. So we're trying to wait for Sarah before we start.
Yeah, I think she's joining now.
Oh, great.
Awesome.
Hello.
Hello. I can. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Cool. I guess since I'm here, Luca, I can do the MC thing like I was going to. It's a bit of a skeleton crew today, but that's all right. Excited to see what you all worked on. So today we're going to do the demos like we normally do, and as Luca pointed out, Phoebe's going to talk us through accessibility, and then we can make a plan for the last week. Can you believe it's the last week? How did that happen? That's so fast.
Yeah.
I know, right? So who wants to share their work first? Do we have one person from each pair this week? Is that Deborah and Sarah? You weren't working together, right? You're each.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Do you want to go first since you're
unmuted?
I think
I'll start. Yeah.
All right.
So. Well, this is not what I want to show. Okay, so Kenny and I, we were working on the welcome page. We decided to go for Bootstrap, and yeah, we didn't really change much, just a little icon here and the name of the app, the button, and yeah, so we agreed as a team that we were going to use Bootstrap, and we are going to make some changes as well later. I guess, yeah, so I'm not going to show you the CSS, but I have a question. So we have, this is not consistent. So we have main style sheet, and then we have like for every, for some of the components. And my question is how, what's the best practice? Should we just have one style sheet or one per component? And what's the best way to go about this?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because there are a lot of ways to solve this, and I don't know, Phoebe, you might have some insight into this as well, but a lot of teams these days don't even have CSS in style sheets. They do CSS within the components. So anything that you like, if you like where you see like a item list.css or something, that would just be encapsulated within the component itself. So there's libraries like Emotion that are used for sort of styling within the component itself. You can do it this way; it totally works. And but the thing about CSS, there are as many ways to do it as there are developers.
Yes. I'm gonna stop sharing.
Yeah, by breaking it up by component, you might end up with more redundancy, right? Like whereas you might have I've seen it done where there's like a typography.css, right, or layout.css. Like there are other ways to approach it but they all optimize for different things. There are trade-offs, so there's no necessarily right or wrong way. Phoebe, how do you approach it in your work?
Usually by component, bit like how you structured. So, but I have it with folders as well. So there'll be I have the folder which contains the JS file and the CSS file, and it's broken down like that really. So I can compartmentalize it a bit more. So, but that's as a preference thing as well. So you can have even within the kind of so what am I trying to say? The styling's actually in line. So some people actually do that. So it's just a preference, but I prefer to do it by component.
Cool. It looks really good. Was it very hard to change the HTML to match what Bootstrap expects?
No, not at all. It was Bootstrap is very flexible, and we thought that maybe that would be the best for our app. Yeah, it's great. We just have to make a few changes, I think, for the next. But we'll do that, I guess, next week. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Nice. Thank you. Any other comments, David or Luke?
Yeah, I have not touched the front end or so for a long time. So what's your opinion about CSS preprocessors? Are on the hype or not?
Well, with the React app, you can't really get away from it. I mean, it's that's it all gets compiled into built files and stuff. I'm kind of old school, so I like to just write a style sheet and link it to my handwritten HTML page and stuff, but that's not really how it works anymore, right? So yeah, if you're doing React, I mean, it's all going to go through Webpack anyway. So
I think we have for all the components we use in the user experience, in the payments pages and so on, we have created shared components with all the styles included for the whole company. So each vertical can build with a coherent style across the company. So because before everyone was doing its own thing and it was a mess. So we are sharing the components and the styles. There are React components and web components. We have both, and yeah, the styles are embedded.
Yeah. So one kind of a higher order thought around preprocessors, so I'll give you a more of a straight answer, is that they like getting everything behind tooling means that you can then improve the tooling, right? So we already see things like tree shaking, which is eliminating code that doesn't actually ever get run. So like if you could have all the JavaScript you need to run the entire application in one big bundle, but the tools are getting smarter so that you only have, for any given view, you only include the JavaScript that you need for that view, right? So the same thing is starting to happen with CSS. And even though it's it seems really verbose, like I look at like the Zapier pages that we build, and there's like a million little script or you know, like CSS style tags and all this kind of stuff, because that's how the tools work now. I expect that stuff to all get more optimized in the future. It's sort of like the reason everybody should drive an electric car is not because right now that's going to be better for the environment, but it abstracts away the power source from the cars themselves, right? So that if everyone's using electricity, then you can make the source of the electricity greener over time, right? So it's the same, like a similar concept to me. But so I think that it's, for complex applications, it's good and going to get better.
I've seen also practices as like folders. I think that's what you refers to, Phoebe, like JS file and then, or index.js inside the like component, and having also a CSS file. And like in the future, if you test that component, you also have the test file inside that folder. So like 3 different files, like JS, CSS, and for testing another file.
Nice. Cool. All right, good stuff. Sarah, you want to show us what you did?
Yeah.
You and Hajar did, right?
Mhm. Yeah. So what we worked on is that we created something to view the details of each component. So here we go. Okay. So it has the last purchase date and the next purchase date and the numbers of items and numbers of purchases. And if we do another one, so it shows also 2 times or 1 times, and you can close it by clicking anywhere or by clicking here. And if it's never purchased before, it will show no recorded purchase yet. So that's for the demo.
It's cool. I love the animation.
And, yeah. Good. Okay. Okay, so we have created a button here with an icon from front also, and the list item details here, component. It appears if show model is true, and it's set to true when you click on the button. And in the list item details. Okay, so we have the name, the list item name, and the purchase date. If you have any purchase, it will view the detail stuff, and if it doesn't have any purchase, it will just view this. So if you have the the last purchase, we format the date, the recent purchase date, and for the next purchase, we calculate the next purchase date, and we format it to. We're doing so here in helper. For formatting the date, we're using local string, date to local string, and we're giving it options. So it shows the year as a numeric like this, and the month long, not short. Like if it's short, it will only show the first 3 letters, and if it's long, it will view all the whole letter word. And the day numeric, so 17 like that. And to calculate the next purchase, we were just converting the have soon. Have soon is days, as you know. So we're converting it to millisecond and adding it to the recent purchase. So it calculates the date of the next purchase. So what else? We also fixed the issue in the sort. Yeah. We were sorting depending on have some value, but we shouldn't really do that. We should do it on the purchase date, on the next purchase date. So we have calculated the days until the next purchase. and used it instead of how soon. We calculated using this function, but instead of using the how soon, the millisecond, in millisecond, we're just converting it back to days again. So, I think that's it.
Cool. Yeah, nice work. Yeah, any questions or anything? Deborah, does that all make sense to you, what they did? Any other comments or questions from mentors or anything? Yeah,
I think it looks it looks great. It looks great for sure.
that's cool. And I was impressed to see that you just did you find that animation somewhere, or did you write that yourself? Because it's a nice touch, the animation.
Yeah. So like a combination. Create something and tweak it a little bit.
That's cool. Nice. Yeah, it all looks really good. Yeah.
I was going to say something, but that I forgot the shortcut for unmute myself, and then I forgot what I was going to ask. So.
All right, cool. I guess yeah, good work. Well done. Yeah, that kind of concludes all the functionality of the app. So the rest, what's left is really styling. So you did it. You have an app. It's really cool. Good job. All right, next, Phoebe, you want to take over and talk to us about accessibility?
Okay. Okay, let me share the screen. This is always a bit of a challenge. There we go. I'm assuming that you can see it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know whether I should even bother putting it into full screen and just leave it like this. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just going to leave it like this because I'm going to have to switch tabs soon. So let me just make it as big as possible. There we go. So I think the reason why I want to take on to do this learning module is because I don't know that much about accessibility. I mean, I've picked up through my learning with FreeCodeCamp, that's like a module, and just from developing sites. So everything's kind of been gathered since I started coding a few years ago. So I wanted to sort of explore a bit more. So from a selfish point of view, I thought I'll do this so I can learn a bit more about it. Okay, sorry, my daughter's just walked in. So I'm gonna get my husband to take her away in a minute.
Hello.
Hello.
She can do it. She can do it. Session.
She could do the presentation, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna get your dad. Just bear with me 1 second. Okay, do you want to go to your dad? Go on. Okay. Go on. I was gonna close the door. So sorry. All right. Okay. So I'm back now. So you may have seen this hashtag. So it's A11Y. So it's not ally and it's not Ali or anything like that. So it's the actual number of letters in between the word accessibility, so the A and the Y. So there's exactly 11 characters. So it's been shortened to A11Y. And it's quite cool because, you know, it makes it a lot easier to and uses up less letters when you're tweeting about it on on Twitter. So yeah, it's basically just a shorthand for that. And so I'm just going to talk about what the why and how. So what accessibility is and why we want to make our websites more accessible and how we make it kind of more accessible. So the basic Wikipedia explanation is web accessibility is the inclusive practice of ensuring there are no barriers that prevent interaction with or access to websites on the World Wide Web by people with physical disabilities, situation disabilities, and socio-economic restrictions on bandwidth and speed. When sites are correctly designed and developed and edited, generally all users have equal access to information and functionality. And we'll explore exactly what physical disabilities and situation disabilities and the difference between those two a bit later on. So the World Wide Web Consortium, the W3C, has a working group which is dedicated to web accessibility, and that's called the WCAG, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. And so it's always good to refer to that if you really want to know what the actual guidelines are. So I've done an extra slide for this. So in the US, we have Section 508, which I believe is the Rehabilitation Act. But I think Andrew will know more about it. So I think that was introduced in the 70s, and then it was updated in the 90s to include more guidelines about how to make your website more accessible and why for people with disabilities. I've included an example of the EU. So we have the Web Accessibility Directive, which was introduced in 2016, which provides people with disabilities with better access to websites and mobile app of public services. So, for example, having a disclaimer at the bottom of your website, which explains how you make the website more accessible. So, just having things like that, which helps. And at the moment, these are just guidelines. So I don't think you can get penalized or fined. In Norway, interestingly, it's against the law if a website doesn't follow the criteria on accessibility. So it's laid down by this, I guess it's a body called the DIFI. So it was just really interesting reading. I read an article by Ida Aylen, and she talks about this example of a Norwegian airline that refused to fix the accessibility issues, and they were threatened with a fine of 15,000 euros a day. So it just really varies in terms of what the penalties are if you don't follow accessibility guidelines. And so in terms of what people with disabilities use in terms of how to access websites. So this is called assistive technologies. So this can include screen readers, screen magnifiers, which I think is inbuilt to Macs, speech input, so like voice recognition, assistive keyboards. So you may you may have to, if you don't have your limbs, you may want to use your chin using a special kind of joystick to navigate around the website, and Braille displays, which is translating written text into, it's kind of like pins, so that the people who are blind can read it through their touch. And popular screen readers include the NVDA and JAWS on Windows, and VoiceOver, which is built into macOS. Okay, let me just move on. So why would you want to make your website more accessible? It's just from like a high level, it's the right thing to do because you are providing equitable access to information. So it's just the good thing to do to make sure that your website is accessible to everyone, as many people as possible. I guess with some companies it's not possible, or with the content, so it's just striving to make it accessible. So whether it's 100% is another thing. But the second point is that you may be legally obligated. So if we saw in Norway, you would be hit with heavy fine, especially if you're a big corporation. And more people in the US access websites with assistive technology than live in Canada. So that's a huge number, more than I actually thought. So some estimate that 20% of website visitors have some sort of disability. So it could be visual or physical. So it's probably best that you try and do it so that more people can access the content that you're trying to get out there. And also by making your pages more accessible, you're probably improving the structure of your website, and it just makes it better for everyone. So yeah. Okay, and on the why, this is a great diagram which Andrew found. It's It's from Microsoft, and it just shows you the range of disabilities that you may not even thought of. So we talked about it earlier. There are permanent disabilities such as you may be missing a limb, and then there's temporary disabilities, an arm injury, or situational such as you're a mother and you have a baby in your arms. You may not be able to navigate around the keyboard and the mouse because you're holding your baby. Just from a personal experience, about 10 years ago, I used to commute around London. I had been commuting for about 2 years, and then a van hit me. I was on the bike wearing a helmet, but I tried to swerve, so I broke my elbow, and I couldn't use a keyboard for about 8 weeks. Luckily, I was working for a very good company, and they had an occupational health department, and they gave me all the voice recognition software and a special mouse, so that when I eventually could go back to typing, I could use the keyboard and the mouse. So that was really helpful. And I kind of didn't really think about accessibility until so sorry, and until sorry, she's back. So okay. I didn't really think about accessibility until I was actually injured. So yeah, and in terms of the chart, Nanu, can you go to Dada? She's being extra naughty today, so I'm really sorry about that.
Don't
So
worry.
they're like ruin my chain of thought now. So if you're blind, that's a permanent disability, or if you've got a medical condition such as cataract, and that's again a temporary disability, or if you're distracted as a driver. So I drive and I sometimes look at my phone, and so it's just things like that. So it's just kind of making us more aware that that disabilities and being affected by it could happen at any stage of your life. And I guess from my point of view, experiencing that 10 years ago made me really think about, sort of how to make things more accessible in terms of technology.
Can I say something? Can
Yeah,
you
sure.
go back one
Yeah.
slide? Why is heavy accent up? I don't know. I don't understand that picture. Heavy accent,
Yeah, that's actually a good question.
like Irish or something like that.
Andrew, do you have any input on that one?
Yeah, I think the idea there is that you like it's from the perspective of the person speaking. So depending on, so if you either are nonverbal or you have laryngitis or you have a heavy accent, it might be hard for you to be understood by other people. I think is what the point they're trying to get across there. So it's not the fault of the person with the accent, because they don't have an accent in their own where they live, right? But it's yeah, it can be a barrier for someone being understood. Yeah.
Never thought about it. Yeah, good point.
Okay. Any more questions? And Andrew, please feel free to step in, because I know that you're the expert in this field. So if I do miss anything out, so please do step in.
Yeah, for sure. You're doing great.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, just the constant interruptions are like really throwing me. So we're on to the how. So how do you make your website more accessible? So these are 7 really good starting points. So I know that the group is already thinking about semantic HTML. There was a bit of discussion about the UL tag, I remember, during one of your PRs. And Sarah was actually explaining to Hajar about there's no need for an ARIA label, because the UL tag is actually semantic HTML, so you don't need to add anything to that. And that kind of gives more structure to your content. So having those and making sure you choose the appropriate tag. So if you have an H1 tag, you should only have one H1 tag, and you should have subheadings which are H2 or below. So just being aware of that. And always include alt attribute tags on your image. And so with that, you have to be slightly careful because you may have images which are purely decorative. So in that case, you do not leave out the alt attribute, you just leave it as an empty string. So always have an alt attribute in your image tags. Just about be mindful whether you choose to add content or not, because otherwise if you remove it, it will, when you come to a screen reader, it would say it's an image and then nothing else. So number 3, use ARIA attributes if necessary. So there's a quote right there on the right. So the best ARIA is no ARIA at all. We need to use semantic HTML whenever possible. And I think that's really good to bear in mind. So it should be a last resort when it comes to kind of labeling up your content elements. So number 4, ensure all content is reachable via keyboard. I'll explore this a bit more further during the demo. But just making sure that you can use the tab and tab through the content, and it's linked to number 5, point number 5, ensure that content and tab ordering makes sense. So, you know, you don't just suddenly end up jumping around the page. So that's kind of, I think sometimes when you use frameworks like CSS Grid or Flexbox, you can sort of move content around, and sometimes it's best to test the accessibility by removing all the CSS and just kind of going through it when it's just simple, no styling at all. And that's probably the best way to sort of see if the tab ordering is correct. Number 6, use sufficient color contrasting. So with buttons, for example, for those who are visually impaired, you know, if the contrast is not enough, they might not be able to see the text that's on the button. So just making sure that you choose a right kind of color palette that has the contrasting colors with on your website. So number 7, don't use only color to signify state. So if you were to have something like a red for you know no and a green for go, if you were to actually just use those for someone who is visually impaired, so for those who are visually impaired, it may be really difficult to see it. It may come up as shades of grey instead of red and green. So you could add a label to explain what that state means, or use an ARIA label or something on those lines. Okay, so on how do you identify accessibility issues for remediation? So automated tools such as Axe, and this is what Lighthouse is built on. So I started using that when I was checking for accessibility on the websites that I was building, but I didn't realize it only spots 30% of the issues. And so, you know, so it kind of, I think it's, Andrew, I can't remember whether it does like a static check or something on the lines of that. But yeah, so
yeah, I mean, that's part of why the reason it can only catch around that many issues is that it is static analysis of your code. So there's, as an example, it can tell you that there's no alt attribute, right? But it's not it can't tell you what the alt attribute should say, right? So there's no, maybe in the future AI will be able to tell us what the alt attribute should actually have in it, but for now it's just like, is there an alt attribute or not? It's that level of check.
Okay, and so my husband is dragging my daughter out as we speak. So there's guided audits such as built-in tools such as the Chrome extension, the Accessibility Insights. So this was really interesting. I started only using it this weekend, and it was really useful. A great tool. It's free. I suggest anyone to add this to the as a Chrome extension. Okay, and also the gold standard, which is audits by accessibility testers by companies such as Phoebe or Tech Labs. I didn't even know this existed, so this is fantastic. It's actually using testers who have a disability, and that's probably the best way to test your website. So if your company has the means to do it, I probably would be pushing toward companies to actually do that. So yeah, so those are kind of 3 ways of identifying accessibility issues. Okay, so Got through it. So it's demo time. So originally I was going to use the BBC as a good example of a accessible website, but they've actually dropped a bit. So I'm going to use two. So I'm going to use our government website, gov.uk. That's where I do my lovely tax returns, etc. As a good example. But ironically, Stack Overflow is notorious for really bad accessibility. I didn't know that, which I know that we all use it. So it's just something to be aware of, really. So I'm just going to go here. I'm going to click on the Accessibility Insights extension. And then it's 3 options, but I'm just going to start with FastPass, which does an initial check on the website. Okay, I'm just going to put these kind of side by side.
I think because you're sharing one window, we can't see the
Okay, right.
accessibility
so
insights. You might be able to drag that tab into this window, maybe. Whoa!
Okay.
All right, there we go. See that?
Yeah. Okay, let me try dragging it in, and then.
Oh yeah, now we can see it.
Okay, so I'll just go back and forth. So as you can see, there's about 11,000 on one. I'm assuming it's on just the one page I'm looking at. Color contrast kind of failures there. So if we go back to Stack Overflow, yeah, so it's not good, basically, and you know, I think we should be aware of that as developers. So I'm just going to open up the developer tools. So what you can do is click on the offending item right here, and you can inspect the HTML, which is great. So you don't have to try and find it yourself. And yeah, so you can see it's a problem here with this particular div. But if I just go back to it again, and it tells you what the element, what the problem is, and how to fix, you know, what to do. So you need a greater contrast. So it's just, they're just too close in terms of, you know, the contrasting colors. So yeah, so this is a great way of highlighting the issues. And if I go back to, you can also do this tab stops, which I thought was kind of neat. So if I click onto the website, I just want to make sure I'm on it. And if I start tabbing, it shows you, I don't know if, it should, I don't know if you can see, I can't really see the flow of it, but.
I think, did you turn on the tab stops? I think I have to.
No, I have to turn it on, don't I? Huh, that's
Yeah.
a good idea.
There you go.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, there. Oh, okay, let me try and, okay, let's just, there we go.
There we go, yeah.
So we can see how the page is read, which is going down the right side, which probably isn't the best order of things.
No, that's not what I would. If I were on the screen reader, I'd be really annoyed because I have to go through all that related content before I get to the actual main column.
But it's kind of a good way. I mean, like if you want to see the flow of your website, this is a really good way of seeing it and seeing whether you can access the content using tab and make the changes where appropriate, really. And when it comes to, you can do kind of more in-depth assessments with the website. So for example, I'm going to choose, okay, let's just choose, let's just do landmarks, landmark roles. Let's see if we can get anything showing on here. Yeah, there we go. So you can see there's navigation, there's the banner, and you know, it's really, you can go and explore these various things on the actual assessment tab. But let me just go to headings, and let's just do one more. Yeah, so the visual help is on. So we can see that there's most of them are H3s, and there's a H1. I don't know why there isn't a H2, but so there you go. And yeah, so I think basically the conclusion from that is that Stack Overflow needs to do a bit more work on the color contrasting, because over 1,000 offenses is probably pretty bad.
There's no excuse to it. It's like simple things to fix. One of the things I really love about Accessibility Insights is that it links to, like, it teaches you about this stuff. So it links to the relevant parts of the spec and like sort of guidelines for all those different, you know, there's so much to know, right? And there's like all these things in the left-hand rail there, but you know, if you like on the getting started part of each section,
yeah,
you know, tells you, like, links right to all the source information where you
Yeah.
can learn more about the thing. So if you were to
Yeah,
go through this in a comprehensive way, you would come out knowing a lot about accessibility.
It's very, very thorough, actually. I have only sort of gone through a few of these, but as you can see, you know, the different areas and the automated checks. So on whether the keyboard in terms of the navigation, that gives you what's on focus and what's not. That's also important, you know, whether your buttons can focus and whether you can sort of access that with using just your keyboard. Yes, I mean, personally for me, I work with maps. So accessibility seems to be kind of put on the back burner in terms of making it more accessible for people. So it seems to be the concentration is just making buttons on, which kind of on top of a map more accessible. So zooming in buttons, any panels that you've got, making sure they're in focus. But I think there's more work to be done there personally. But that's what I work on mainly. And just to show that, you know, a website which is actually doing it really well, I'm just going to get rid of Stack Overflow, this is our official government kind of, it's used for everything, child benefits and, you know, all the various things. So but if I did an automate, and it's 0 instances of offenses. So hold on, let me see if you can see that. There you go. So it does very well. And if I was to do the tab stops on this one, if I turn it on, yes, I'm going to turn it on this time. I think this is probably, okay, I didn't start from the top. That probably doesn't help, but let's just say, but it's kind of, this one probably makes a bit more sense. You can tab through everything. But yeah, okay, so I'm going to leave it there in terms of the demo. And then going back to the presentation slides, and there's some extra resources. So there's so much to read about, you know, the content to help you, and there's so many tools which are free. And it's just, I think it's just a great thing to do to be mindful of it and to bear it in mind when you're actually building your app or your website. So anyway, that's me done. Any questions? Let's put it out there.
Yeah, one thing. So at the bottom of this page is listed Fable Tech Labs, who I've worked with, and they're great, but they do cost money. Assistive Labs is that's a company run by a guy named Weston Thayer, and he actually did a presentation for Collab Lab. I think it was our very first tech talk, where he talked about accessibility sort of generally, but also demoed the tool that he built, which is allows you to, you know, if you don't have access to JAWS, because JAWS is a pretty expensive piece of software, you know, you can actually go through and like sort of like Browser Stack, if you've ever used that to test on different devices. You can go into sort of a virtual machine and actually use JAWS on your website or in NVDA or other assistive technologies through this one service through the web. So he gave us access to Assistive Labs. So if you want to try it out, we can, I don't know if it's, I can't remember, I can never remember. It's just, he gave me a free login or something that I can share with you. He's fine with me sharing it with people. I think that's how it works. So if you're interested in trying out Assistive Labs and just seeing what it does, let me know and I'll get you the login credentials.
Deborah and Sarah, what's your kind of exposure to accessibility? Did you kind of cover it in your self-learning or bootcamp, or is it something that's kind of put to one side?
It's almost non-existent. So yeah, now I am learning everything. I don't know, somehow I feel that it's overwhelming because there's so much that I have been pushing it a bit, but it is very important, and I haven't even, I didn't know about all these tools before the Collab Lab. So I am now, I guess better prepared to think about it when I build something next time.
That's good. I think that was the aim of the presentation, to just make you a bit more aware of it.
Very interesting. Thank you, really, Phoebe. Yeah.
So yeah, sorry about the interruptions. Okay, right. I think I'm going to stop sharing. There we go.
Sarah, were you going to say something about your experience with accessibility?
Just like Deborah, it just I learn about it by time. So I haven't like had any course or anything about accessibility. Just learn about it by time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I couldn't find any guidelines on accessibility for Kenya or Egypt. And my husband said there's going to be no guidelines for Egypt. But I think it's up to each company to kind of, you know, do it themselves rather than like a government pushing them to make sure things are accessible. But I did try.
Yeah, I can remember 7 or 8 years ago when I was freelancing, and first time I got exposed to this was at that time. If you wanted a public contract, you needed to comply with at least AA in the accessibility guidelines, and it was there was any tool. So the way it works was you thought it was finished and you send it to their testers, and they threw you back a report with all the things that you had to fix, and you only had 2 tries and if not you have to pay them. So it was yeah, it was quite interesting.
Wow, no pressure.
Yeah, because I understand, because you are not wasting, but they are spending time testing what you did. So
Yeah, that does make sense. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, so much of it comes down to not trying to be too clever, too. You know, like I think I just told the story, I think, in the last call. So stop me if I'm repeating myself, if I'm remembering wrong. But at Zapier, we built a page where we had a tester from Fable Tech Labs come in and test it. And he's this guy, Sam, he's super nice. And he's like on his screen reader and he's tabbing through everything. And he gets to a section of the page where we had headlines that, you know, a little arrow next to it. You could click on each one, it would drop down more information, right? Pretty standard little thing. And he could see all the headers for each of them, but he had no way. He was trying everything he could think of on the keyboard to get those. He initially just skipped right over them. We're like, oh, you missed these things. He's like, oh, okay. So we went back and he's like, we're like, there's more content there. And he's like, I can't get to it. And what we had done was we had built little custom widgets to, you know, you click on the arrow and it spins and the thing drops down and shows you the content. And he had no way to get to it via keyboard. So to him, it didn't exist. You know, there was no way for him to even know it was there. So the nice thing about using manual testers like this is that, you know, he's been using screen readers for decades and he's seen thousands and thousands of web pages, and he's, you know, somewhat technical. So he actually suggested that we just use a details tag, the actual built-in semantic HTML tag for that kind of use case. We went and retrofitted that back into that section and had him come back and do another review, and it all worked perfectly. And we didn't really, you know, we could have spent all this time using ARIA stuff and, you know, trying to like testing all these edge cases and everything to try and make it accessible ourselves, or we could just use the tag that's meant for that, and, you know, it's all kind of like figured out already for you. It's built into the browser. So yeah, sometimes, you know, the right solution for these things is just to do something that's actually simpler, you know, less clever, less code. So
yeah, I don't know if you first time I saw someone used to use screen readers. They listen to people speaking at 4 times the normal speed, and I cannot understand anything, and it's normal for them. It's reading the screen at 4x, and they, oh yeah, great. Oh.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's what we were kind of listening to Sam like go through our page, and you know, he knew he didn't want a link. So anytime it starts to say link, it would, like, you know, it would, if you left it there, it would be link, blah blah blah, you know, all this stuff, and he would just link, and he'd be on to the next thing, link, and it's just going so fast, you know. It's fascinating. It's really cool. There's got to be YouTube videos that of people using screen readers or something, you know, just so you could kind of get a sense for how that goes. But
Andrew, I was, or in general, everyone, I was wondering, I think I've seen like accessibility developer like jobs. Are there like dedicated jobs for accessibility developers?
that's a good question. I think EJ kind of does something like that, actually. One of the other mentors. He works for Webflow, and I think his primary thing is to work on accessibility issues. But it's pretty rare, I think. Like, I think most companies, they just expect, I mean, it usually falls on the front end developers to kind of know about it, and kind of, you know, and so a lot of times, even at Zapier, where we have good intentions, we're only very recently starting to say as a company that we want to make our product more inclusive. And up until then, it was really just like there were a few core people who cared about the issue, and then we kind of get in it, like we created a channel and we're all talking about it, and we have put some automated testing in place and just try to raise some awareness about it. But it's a lot of times it's a grassroots kind of thing, at least in my experience. Although I was just on the last call I was on, Indira, who works for Visa, the credit card company, she says they have a whole group that's dedicated to accessibility, and they're sort of internal consultants on the issue, and they're not all developers, but they're, you know, testers and different kind of roles, and they build libraries and stuff that the developers at Visa can use to make their stuff more accessible as well. So it depends on you know, a bigger company is more likely to have specialized people doing that, I think. You like it that much? You want to go that direction, Luca? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, I mean, like after Collab Lab, I definitely like read more and like use the Chrome extensions and kind of.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Nice job, Phoebe. Thank you for that. That was great. Yeah, if there are no other questions, I guess we can go over the issues for next week.
Yep.
They're very similar to one of the issues for this week.
I can start sharing the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just Googling like accessibility developer. But okay, so we have 3 issues left for the 8th week, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think all these 3 issues. So either you can decide to split these issues into the teams, or you can all work on this together. So I will just read through the issues, and I think we can discuss more details. So as a user, I want the shopping list screen to look pretty, so the app looks professional and welcoming. And acceptance criteria is this the shopping list screen. The screen that lists all of the user purchases looks something like the following. And
emphasis on something, like it doesn't have to look anything like this. Like you should make it your own, right?
And for the 16, the item detail screen, the screen a user sees when they tap on one of the items in the shopping list looks something like this following right here. So this, I think in our case, this would be like a styling for the model when we see the details of the item. And for this number 17, the add an item screen, the screen a user uses to add a new item to their list, looks something like the following here. And of course, this is also up to you how you are going to design this. But in general, for all of these three issues, you can definitely either split this work or work on this together as a team. In our case, I can tell you our example. We all met once to discuss just general guidelines for our styling, like color scheme and so on. And then we split it two issues into two teams, or actually, yeah, we split two issues and then we worked on one issue together, I believe. But definitely this is up to you, if I'm not wrong, right, Andrew?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, other teams, yeah, they've just kind of mob programmed the whole thing, and or they split it up and try to divide and conquer. It's kind of a fun chance to self-organize a little bit around how you solve the problem, but you probably get the gist. It's basically just like kind of let's add style and polish to the app.
Yeah, this is very fun part, kind of coming up like with the design of your application and making this like very individual to your group, and it's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions or any ideas? Do you know how you want to work on this?
So me and Deborah were just discussing this. So we decided that maybe the one who's going to work on the homepage, the group is going to work on the homepage, will work on the details model too. And the other group will work on this one. But Kenny and Hajar weren't there, so maybe we can discuss that later when they are online.
Yeah, so will you try to get together the four of you and make some decisions then, or I mean, I guess maybe you could do it in Slack as well, but
yeah, we shared it a little bit. Yeah, we choose the color and the logo.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, then I guess Bootstrap is going to kind of guide you on a lot of the elements, right? So. All right, cool. Yes, Deborah.
Yeah, no, so
Just one.
sorry.
No, okay. Okay, I was just asking. So for the details, we're adding a button for that. Should we just like delete the button and make the action when you click in the whole item list? Will it be better that way, or should we leave the button?
Yes, good question. So I don't know. What do you think?
I think maybe it will be better if you click on the whole item to view the details. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a little tricky because you need to do multiple things on that row, right? So you need to be able to mark something as purchased. You need to be able to go and see the details, and you need to be able to delete the thing. Another option would be you could move the delete functionality into the modal, so that list item is only doing two things. You know, you either you hit the checkbox and it's purchased. Anywhere else, it takes you into the modal, and then you could delete from inside the modal. That might be another approach.
Just want to add, it might not be obvious enough that you need to click on the item for further details, because there isn't, and it's just something that we, I guess, take for granted, or you think it's intuitive that you click on something. So, or maybe some instruction about, click on the item to read the details, if you want to keep with that design.
Luca, if you show the list here in the issue. So that's the sample design has a little arrow to kind of indicate that you would be going into another page or another view. Yeah, you could do it either way. I mean, maybe that's something you all need to decide as a group.
Yeah.
So right now you have this little icon, right? This is cool.
I just think it's also, if you get someone that's never used the app before to play around with it and test it, it's always a good way to find things that you wouldn't have thought about. That's what I do. So I just get someone who hasn't done it, and they say, go on, have a go, have a use it, no instructions included, and see how they handle it.
Yeah.
So
Good idea.
looking at like with the way you have it right now, what I would expect as a user is, you know, I hit the icon for delete, I delete it, I hit the icon for the eye, and I get the modal, and anywhere else is what I use to select, like to say that I purchased it. And that might make sense because that's the most common thing you'll be doing, right? The other actions are much more rare, so they could just be sort of off to the side. But you know, most of big hit area for just saying that you purchased.
Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. Deborah, did you have anything else that you were going to say?
I know, it was just that so Sarah shared this random choice generator to decide on the issue. Because sometimes we just can't come up with okay, you have a preference for one, I don't, and then so it's like a wheel, and then that. So we got with Hajar the number 15. So Hajar and I, this is our week. And then you got the 17, right, Sarah? And then we can share the 16. Yeah, just for Luca to assign.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yep.
Yeah. We also choose coins sometimes to decide things. We're so creative when it comes to decision. Yeah.
I like that though. It's offloading the decision making. That's smart.
You can also go anytime and like reassign yourselves to different issues. That's also an option.
Cool. All right. Are we all set for our last week? Last week. So sad. I know. Cool. Well, I'm excited to see what you come up with. See the final version. Who has office hours this week? Is it probably me if I'm asking?
Oh, yeah, I think we yeah, I'm not sure.
Oh, David, is it you? No, David, you had it last week, right?
Yep.
Oh, who wants to do office hours this week? I'm actually off all week because of American Thanksgiving.
Oh yeah.
So I could do office hours this week. Would Wednesday, or are you up for it, David?
I think maybe we can do a group one. Maybe.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Yeah. If you maybe try to use a doodle to try to find some times that works for everyone.
Yeah,
that'd be nice. Like a final like mass kind of office hour. So
yeah, that's right.
An AMA for anyone in the group.
Okay, I'll send a doodle right after this and see if we can find some times. Probably, I am on vacation, so I probably won't be on a call before 8 o'clock in my time. But
yeah, don't worry.
Cool. All right. Thanks everybody so much. Nice job. Yep. See you later.
See you.
Thank you. See you.